And so I think if they continue to do that, there's, if things stay the way that they're going now and trending in the direction that they're trending now, I don't, other than resale, which at some point is going to get to be minimal, the difference. Other than resale, there's no other reason why anybody should be grading with PSA over SGC. I don't know, that's going to piss a lot of people off, but that's okay. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Retro Hoop Collectibles. We're going to do a little bit of a update video today. I think it was, I'd say probably about 3 or 4 months back, I did a video where I was doing some comparing of PSA 10 and SGC 10 prices. Trying to see kind of what the big gap was for that stuff. Now, you guys know that in my humblest of opinion, SGC is a better grading company, in my opinion, than PSA. And for the most part, all of the things that you would use to grade one company against the other, SGC just kind of stacks up better in every way, with the exception of one, and that is the one thing that seems to be keeping PSA in some people's opinions at the top, and that is resale. I'd say about 80% of the reason why anybody would grade a card is to add value to that card itself, especially if you have one that's in a really good condition that potentially get a good grade. You send it off to get graded and it adds value to the card. Could potentially take $100 card and make it a $1,000 card. Who knows? But I did a little bit of a comparison of 4 cards, which I would consider to be kind of the, if I had to put together an index fund of basketball cards, I would say these 4 cards would definitely be in that mix. And so I took a look at them back then. It was a pretty good sizable gap. You guys can go back and watch that video. I'll link it up at the top. But I wanted to just kind of revisit those 4 cards now. Almost, I want to say it's probably about 6 months, or probably 6 to 7 or 8 months removed since I did that video. And wanted to just kind of see what the latest was. And so that being said, we'll hop on over to our sponsor, Card Hedge, who has this amazing platform, and of course, more specifically, this feature here within this platform that allows you to look and compare 2 cards, whether it be 2 totally different cards or 2 cards, the exact same card, 2 totally different grades in terms of what they're both bringing on the market. And so we won't, hold on. Let's do this. Let's start off with, we're going to start off the way I started off in the other video. So this is, for as much as I don't like the guy, I mean, he literally just became a billionaire, which is pretty impressive. Not pretty impressive. I mean, it's impressive. He's, I think, one of the only, actually, I think the first active basketball player to become a billionaire. So that's pretty insane. But we're looking at his Topps 2003 base. I think this is just base. Yeah, this is just paper. This is in chrome. Topps 2003 Topps basketball LeBron James rookie card. And what we're looking at is, in the dark purple is PSA 10 prices, and in the pink is the SGC 10 prices. And as you can notice, I mean, bit of a gap back here. The difference was 18, almost 7,000 for a PSA 10, and a SGC was about $2,700. So pretty sizable, almost a $4,000, a little bit over a $4,000 gap in value between a PSA 10 and an SGC 10. And this was back in June of, so we're talking about May, April, February is 20. I'm going to say this was October, September, June. So this was June of last year. Yeah, so exactly this time, exactly a year ago, there was a $4,100 price discrepancy between SGC and PSA, and now that price discrepancy is about $200. Um, you know, not really sure. I mean, some of that can be attributed to just the declining market overall. I mean, right here, they're pretty much about the same. $2,200, $2,400, $2,500. So now it's about a $500 price difference. But I find it interesting that even sales of SGC 10, it's almost like the correction is happening on the PSA side, not on the SGC side. Because even though there hasn't been that many transactions of SGC cards, there's been way more transactions of PSA cards. The SGC card is still bringing in roughly about the same. I mean, we're talking about, what is this here? Well, you're still getting a pretty sizable discount. You're getting about a 20% discount between SGC and PSA 10. But, I mean, it's nothing like what it was. I mean, we're looking at it at the peak is kind of exaggerated, but nothing like what it was here. I mean, you're still talking about almost double the price. I don't know who paid that price, $14,000. That's insane. And then again, somebody got a really good deal at $680, whatever that was. And then somebody paid $85. I mean, so the price is kind of up and down, but it's pretty close. I mean, it's not that much difference. You're looking at about 20% discount now. So, in this case, I would say, yeah, PSA definitely closed the gap here. I mean, SGC definitely closed the gap in terms of pricing. Again, not much volume. But definitely pricing. One thing I did notice when I was at the Dallas Card Show, I did have some PSA cards with me that I was selling. And while I end up selling everything that I had for the most part, with the exception of my Watson RPA, but I think that had more to do with Watson in general than it did SGC versus PSA. My PSA cards went like those were the first ones to go. So. There is still some hesitancy. So yeah. So as far as the tops, yeah, I would say for sure in the LeBron James, it's closed the gap. Taking a look now at Kobe Bryant's rookie card. So again, this is Topps paper. Pretty big discrepancy over here. Almost double the price. As far as almost $2,000 more. It's about $1,500 more. Almost double the price. And then now we're talking about maybe a $300 difference in price. Much more volume on the Kobe than SGC. In SGC, so a little bit more volume there. But again, I mean, the graph almost kind of tells the story itself, right? I mean, as a whole, declining, right? But, the gap closing at the same time. And I don't know if it's just by volume, because of the volume, right? There's so much volume on the PSA side that it tends to decline. But I mean, you're still looking at the same picture here. You're looking at a year's worth of sales between PSA 10 and SGC 10. And I mean, call it what you want. This gap here was significantly larger than it is here. I mean, you're talking about now $970 for a PSA 10, $600 for a SGC 10, as opposed to even right here where it was $2,700 for a PSA 10, $1,300 for a SGC 10. So a pretty sizable difference in terms of the gap between the two. So as far as the Kobe is concerned, I would say, yeah, the Kobe definitely did close the gap. Luka Doncic, this is a 2018 Prism base. I've talked a little bit about this recently, how I'm looking for one either in an SGC 10 or a PSA 10. But again, I've talked a few times about whether now is the right time to buy. He had a little bit of a run up recently, just due to his, amazing performance in the playoffs and making it all the way to the semifinals, Western Conference semifinals. So that was pretty good. So he had a bit of a run up there, mid-May, late May. And then, now that he's technically in the offseason, a bit of a dip, a bit of a sell-off, and then kind of back to it. But again, the gap, right? We're talking about $390 for a PSA 10 versus $250 for a PSA 10. And even back here, it was still kind of close, even when it was at $800 and $760. Bit of a gap here, a couple $100 gap. So I would say that for the modern cards, like the absolutely modern cards, because the last two that we looked at were 2003 and 1996. This is 2018. So, you have a pretty large gap where people were maybe grading with PSA, not really looking at SGC for anything modern. And then now we have, with all the recent publicity that SGC has gotten, a lot of the marketing that they're doing, letting people know, hey, we grade modern stuff too. The 2018 Lucas, have gotten a little bit more steam in terms, and you'll see there's a lot more volume too on an SGC 10. So, that may have something to do with it as well. But I mean, the gap is virtually non-existent. 370, 320, is the difference. But here, I mean, you're talking 350, 250. So $100 difference. Between there, it's pretty sizable. But, we're not talking about big gaps like we saw with the Kobe and the LeBron. So, as far as this one's concerned, yeah, there used to be a pretty sizable gap. It's been closed up pretty well now. So, not saying that they're going for the same price. Obviously, two totally different companies. But it's still the same. They're selling for about the same. The gap has definitely closed. So if you're once again, I think I've said this before. If you're really looking to collect, if you're really looking to add the card to your collection, then SGC would be the way to go if you ask me. Of course I'm biased, but whatever. And then finally, looking at 1986 Fleer Michael Jordan. There really wasn't a whole lot of transactions in a PSA 10. I mean, I can add them in a PSA 10 if we really want to get technical. I don't think there was any transactions in an SGC 10. SGC 10. Oh, there was one maybe two. I don't know. Let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at the SGC 10 PSA 10 first. Oh, okay, yeah. So there wasn't any transactions in an SGC 10. So let me just put SGC. Let's go PSA 9, and then SGC 9, and hit enter, and then it brings them both in here, and then we're still looking at a year. So again, the gap's been pretty consistent here. Transacting between 25 and 27,000 for the PSA 10, and then about 10 to 14,000 for the SGC 10. So yeah, not much of a gap close there. Not much of a gap close. The gap has been pretty consistent. Now there was a couple of sales here. SGC 9 went for 34,000, which is kind of odd. But then again, not much transactions as well. But I would say that they did not close the gap on 86 Fleer, which is interesting. I wonder why this particular card. Anyway, I'll jump off here. So it's a very interesting thing, right? So close the gap on the LeBron, close the gap on the Kobe rookie, most definitely close the gap on the more modern card, which is the Luka base. Did not close the gap on the 86 Fleer. Gap's been pretty consistent. We'll talk about it maybe this weekend on the live, but pretty interesting to see that the gaps are closing up. I mean, the data's here. There's really not much to argue about. What are your thoughts on, in the comments, let me know, what are your thoughts on why the gap's still pretty big on the 86 Fleer? I find that really interesting. But, as long as PSA continues to, still be at $50, their deliveries are somewhat inconsistent. Their grading is somewhat inconsistent. But And SGC been very consistent for, I'd say, the last 24 to 30 months in terms of what they're offering and what they're delivering. And so I think if they continue to do that, there's, if things stay the way that they're going now and trending in the direction that they're trending now, I don't, other than resale, which at some point is going to get to be minimal, the difference. Other than resale, there's no other reason why anybody should be grading with PSA over SGC. I don't know, that's going to piss a lot of people off, but that's okay. I appreciate you guys watching as always. Thank you again to Card Hedge, our sponsor, for always supporting the channel. We appreciate them. We appreciate you watching. As always, I love y'all. Peace.